Hello and welcome to the 15th episode of the Rocket League Mapmaking tutorial series. Today I'm going to be talking about common action script used in Adobe Flash for workshop maps because I am about to do a full analysis of Mario Party. Hopefully you guys can find something that might be useful or see how I do things and might give you ideas on how to manage your Kismet. But there's a lot in the HUD that I need to explain and a lot of properties I need to talk about. So I have a basic, 3.0, Actionscript 3.0 file made right now. I'm just going to set the stage to gray and set it to 1920 by 1080. Now, I already have a couple functions in here. I'm just going to put this here and make it really big. Give me a second. All right, I've made it as big as I possibly can. So basically, this first line is just to set the entire thing in full screen. So if you're on a 1440p monitor, a 2K monitor, a 4K monitor, it's going to show up the same as if you make it in 1920 by 1080. If you make the HUD in 1920 by 1080, it's going to be the same if you just put that full screen there. And then also this event listener, add event listener on enter. Basically on enter is going to repeat everything that's happening inside of it indefinitely. And you'll see in a second. But first thing is that there's basically three common variables. To create a variable, just type var. So the thing to know is that if it's above, or if it's outside of the onEnter function, it could be set in Kismet, but will not update automatically, and that doesn't make much sense, but I'll talk about it in a second. So first variable is going to be just a basic number. So I'm going to type in num, and then you do colon number equals, and then whatever it is. And then we're going to do the same thing for a Boolean. So we're going to do Boolean. I'm just type in bool. And I can't type in the whole thing or it's going to appear blue and it's going to try and run something. And then colon Boolean equals false. And that has to be all lowercase. And there's false and then there's true, like a Boolean does. And then there's variable string, which I'm going to just do str for string. And then colon string. And then we're going to do two apostrophes. So apostrophe is basically going to make this a string. So anything in here that I type is just a string. And then I'm going to make these lowercase. Another tip I would give you is to make all of your variables lowercase. So when you're in UDK, you don't have to worry about case sensitive stuff. That's basically the three main types of variables that you're going to use. And then you can set these in UDK using a set variable node, which I won't be doing. This is just about ActionScript. It's going to be pretty quick. And then there's a few main functions that I use that they come in handy for certain things, but I don't actually use that many. So I'm just going to hit T and create a text box over here. And I'm going to get rid of this window really quick. And so I'm just going to set this over here so I can see it while I'm doing stuff. And then I'm going to name the instance just text.txt. It's a good idea to do txt at the end because it'll make it a non-variable or like a non-function. That doesn't make much sense, but if you were to type just text, it would appear in that blue text, and you don't want that. Make this big-ish, that's fine. And I'm going to unselect this, and this basically makes it selectable. So if you were to move your mouse above it, it would show you, this typing cursor instead of... It'll show you the typing cursor instead of just it not being selectable, and it would just show up like this. And then in order to have the font be able to be changeable, you have to set this to classic text and this to dynamic text, and then you have to embed the font. So I usually just do all because I'm lazy, but technically you don't need to do all. You could just do uppercase and lowercase depending on what you're doing. But I just do everything. So next thing I'm going to do is hit F9. That's going to open this back up. And then this text box is called text.txt, and you can see that when I type text, it lights blue, but if you do txt, it automatically makes it so it won't be blue. And then .text, and then I can just set this to whatever I want. So I can just set it to string. And if I do this, I can type this cowerness or something. And then if I hit Control and Enter, it's going to run it, and you can see that it says towerness right there. And you can obviously do this whatever you want, but I'm going to type score just like that. Um, Another thing you can do is you can make the numbers strings. So you can just do num.toString like that. So now the number is going to be to a string and it's going to go to 0. So if I set this to the funny number, okay, I hit the wrong button. What I just did is I hit Control Shift Enter, uh, which is going to open this debug, and it comes in useful sometimes. Um, but yeah, don't worry about it. I hit Control Enter, and you can see right there it shows the funny number. I would not show a bool on screen unless you're debugging, but there's really no point to do it. But technically, if I wanted to, I could do bool toString and it'll say false. And then if I wanted to, I could do string plus a colon and then a spacebar, and then I can do plus num. So if I set the score to, I don't know, 12, you can see it'll score 12 because it's going to combine everything. And if I were to set no space here, it's all going to be together. And so that's how you basically set the string. It's pretty simple stuff. And you might notice that I don't need to do toString on the number here. And that's because of this one weird thing. If I were to do num plus an empty string, it still converts it. I don't know why, but that's just another way you can do it. I'm going to change it back to the score. Another thing I like to do is set the visibility of things. So let's set the bool to visibility. Visibility, and then I'm just going to copy that because I don't want to type that. I don't even know if I spelled it right, but it's close enough. And so I'm going to do an if statement. So if visibility equals false, I want the entire thing to disappear. So I want text txt.visible to equal false. And that's basically an if statement that says if this bool is false, which it has to be a double equal here. If it's false, it's going to not show the text, which is what I want. Next thing, whoops, I'm just going to copy paste this entire thing so I don't have to retype it. And then obviously I do use these brackets because that's where the functions have to be in between. And then I can do if it equals true, but I can also do, I think it's exclamation part equals. It's one or the other. So if you were to do exclamation mark equals, it's going to basically be not equals, which is useful for numbers, not really for bools. But you can see there, if I set this to true, it is no longer false, and the visibility becomes true. And I can also set this to double equals. I can set that to double equals true, and it's going to work too. I just wanted to show that you can set things to be not equal. That's most of the main things that I do in Flash. There's really not that much stuff that you need to do. It's just a lot of copy pasting and doing the same things over. But if I were to do scale X as a number, and let me see what the scale of this is real quick. The width is 504. So I'm going to set this to 504. And then the scale Y, I'm just going to show how to quickly set the scale of something. And then this scale Y is 387. And if you're wondering where I'm looking, it's right here. So if I click on the text box, you can see 504 and 387. That's the scale of it. So that's what I'm looking at. So now, in order to change the width of it, you just do text txt dot width equals scale X, and then text txt dot height equals scale Y. And so if I were to set this back to 200, it doesn't really change. But if I set this to 2000, it still doesn't change. I forgot that this is a text box, so it's not going to matter. Let me put a rectangle right here. So I'm just going to make it black with a green outside. I think that's what that is. Yep. And then select all of it, and we're gonna hit F8, and it's gonna convert it to a movie clip. And I'm gonna make this a button, I think, so I can change things with it. Actually, I'm gonna make it a movie clip for a scale, and then I'm gonna name it rect. And if we go back here, I need to give this a name, so I can name it rectangle MC, which MC stands for movie clip. So if I do rect MC and rect MC, you can see it changes it a lot. If I do change this back to 200, it stays pretty much the same. If I change this to 5,000, it stretches it a ton too. And if you wanted to, there is a way to move things up and down, which is another thing I've done a lot. So if I want this rectangle to move, I can just set the Y and X to 0. That's going to set it to the corner. So if I were to set it to half of what the scale is, so it's technically 960 and 540. If I wanted to just do it here, I could do 1920 divided by 2 and 1080 divided by 2, and it's going to set it straight in the middle. And that's how you can center something easily. You can also go up here and just center it here, but that's one way you can center it. Next thing I want to do is a button, because buttons are pretty simple. I just want to, discuss it really quick, because this is another thing I use a lot. And you can obviously find tutorials on this on YouTube already, but I'm just doing the basic things that I used for Rocket League. And so the rectangle is a movie clip, so I'm going to put that movie clip inside of a button and name it. I'm going to name it button, because I am very specific with what I name things. Now, next I'm going to name the instance name to just rect button. That's what BTN is, at least for me. And then over, I'm just going to scale it up. This is just a really easy button. On down, just set it down to like 98. So now what this is going to do is when I click on it, it's just going to do that little animation. That's our simple button. Now you might see some errors down here, and that's because the rectangle pretty much no longer exists. But I can go inside of the button and take this and get rid of that name, and then go back out here and then put the rectangle here and then name that rect MC, and then it's going to get rid of that. So now we have two rectangles. One's a button, one's not. Now I want to program this button to, add the score up. So whenever I hit this button, the score count is going to go up. So you can see rectangle button is what we have it named. And in here, I've added a event listener for whenever the mouse is down. So rect.button, rect button dot add event listener, and then +1, and then we are going to make it increment up every single time it does this. So basically num++ is just going to increment number up. So if we add this, every time we click the button, it's going to increment it up over time, and I can obviously span this. It's going to keep going up. And if I want to make it go down, I can do it minus, and it's going to keep going down, and it's going to go into negatives. And that is basically all of the basic stuff that I do in Flash. I can't really think of anything else that I would normally do. Mainly just text boxes, movie clips, and changing them, and then making buttons, which is very simple. And if I wanted to, I could completely change what it says if I wanted to in here. So I could set the string equal to, I don't know. I could just set the string equal to button score like that, or I could change it to something like kangaroo. I don't know why that's the first thing that came to my mind, but kangaroo is there now. And this is all going to keep being affected because it's under the on enter string. So if I were to set this up here and I hit this, it's not going to change it because it's already set. So you can see it does change the string, so it's score and the number still. So if I were to set this number to 17, you can see that it still shows it. It's just that it won't do anything because it has to be on the on enter if it wants to keep doing something. And that's the main thing. Put everything that you want to change under your onEnter function. I think the Mario Party, which is analysis that's going to come out soon, which is why I'm making these specific tutorials, or why I finally have an inclination to make these tutorials, is everything is about I think 300 lines, but it's all under onEnter stuff because it has to continuously run. And this will obviously run in Rocket League, and it'll run in full screen because of this up here. And I would leave this out of the onEnter because you only want this happening once. If you have it happening multiple times, I've never done that because I don't know anyone that's going to change their screen resolution as they're playing. So this doesn't matter if it's out. But those are the main functions that I use: numbers, bools, strings, and then moving the X and Y coordinates, changing the width and height, using if statements, setting text boxes, converting numbers to strings, and the buttons, which can increment numbers and change strings. And that's basically it. This video was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. If you want any more tutorials about Adobe Flash or anything at all at map making, just let me know, and I will most likely do it, because I may or may not be running out of ideas. I mean, I've done it. This is the 15th one, and I feel like I've gone over pretty much everything except for custom cars, which will be coming soon. But that's all for me. I'll see you